I suppose I've been lucky enough to be 10 foot away from two of the most historical performances. The Pistols' first gig in November '75, and Michael Jackson, literally it was from here to, it was like 20 foot away, and I'm on next, and it's like, and he's done it, and I'll just go, you are joking.
My name is John Doran, and I write about music. In this series for Noisey, I'm interviewing notable figures from British popular music, such as Johnny Marr and Gary Numan. On the surface, it may be hard to pin down what connects these disparate figures, but all of them are masters or outliers in their field. Adamant was at punk ground zero in the UK, but he became a bona fide pop sensation when he abandoned the codified rulebook. His brand of pop was one of the most berserk and adventurous ever heard, and he remains a symbol of what a pure flight of the imagination can achieve. It's my pleasure today to welcome Adamant to British Masters for Noisey.
Hi, John.
Now, I've got to say, I remember quite clearly when I first saw your poster in Looking magazine when I would have been about 9 years old when Kings of the Wild Frontier came out. Literally everyone in my year, it was like down with the Doctor Who posters, up with the Adamant posters. I was wondering, what was it like for you, that initial kind of rush of like almost overnight success in the pop world?
Yeah, well, it literally was, 3 years of work, and then all that work, and it was ironic to be totally focused on early Adam and the Ants and going the indie route, and then suddenly doing one television show, Top of the Pops. And like you say, the next day it was in Looking magazine. It was like, whoa, what's this all about? It was just like the right time, the right place, with a look and a sound that really would never have come together had I not had those 3 years. Really, it was the stripe and the brocade that kind of put the icing on the cake.
Certainly worth the tens of thousands of bollockings that happen up and down the country for kids painting on the faces in Tipp-Ex.
I know a lot of kids got allergic rashes from using various things across their noses that would set them off. But you're lucky if in your career that you do something that people take notice of. But when they actually embrace it and it becomes part of the culture, if you like, at that particular moment in time, it doesn't come, better than that. But I was just using classical sort of grease paint,
That's what I was doing wrong. Tipp-Ex, just not right.
Yeah.
I think in a way, the image reached like a critical peak around like the Prince Charming time. I get the feeling that maybe some other people in the band didn't quite like it as much as you did.
Well, let's just say a certain person that will remain nameless but did play the drums. We burnt his trainers and we measured the bottom of his trousers because they were flared. We actually nailed him down. But most of the guys were really into the clothes. But the paint was they were a bit more reluctant. But I found after a while, they got into it more than I did because I already had mine sorted out. But then it was like checking things out. So slowly but surely, I think the narcissism bit them as well.
One thing I'm really interested in, like as a music writer, is kind of non-standard kind of vocal and singing techniques. So I was listening to some demos recently, and one of Prince Charming, and what's amazing is that even though the music's really ropey and kind of quiet, it just sounds like a couple of guys playing in a shed or whatever, the vocals are almost entirely there as they appear on the record.
Yeah, that was usually the case in the studio. All the music was down. I'd do a sort of very quiet, like guide vocal. But like Prince Charming, the that was just working with Malcolm. Dave Barbarossa was off, listening to drum rhythms, and I went off and dug out these kind of very unusual tribal records. These records that you could only find in very specialist shops, and I'd listen to hours of these guys just going for like, we're talking an hour and a half with a slight variation maybe on side 2, track 5. But I really did my homework, and listening to those things, it just inspired me, to try and layer a sound that would use the voice as an instrument, which I'd always done. Because to me, if it's tracks like a Xerox machine, for instance, there's like loads of vocals, like lots. Used to bounce like 30 lots of vocals down to 4 tracks. And then when it came to Kings of the Wild Frontier, most of that, I think 18 tracks of that is drums. So everything else had to be bounced down. So it was a good job that I'd kind of had that experience of bouncing down and layering my voice. I was just trying to use all kind of ranges of it in a kind of guttural way that Western rock and roll doesn't do. I remember some of the looks on some of the faces behind the glass when I first started, because I wouldn't tell them. I'd say, "Oh, we're done there. No, I just want to do this thing." And I'd say, "Hey," you know, and do it. And they go, "Oh, that's good. Yeah, do that again." So they do like 10 layers of that. Those records were so experimental in the studio. We had loops going. We had a loop for Dog Eat Dog, and we were sitting around with a 1/4-inch tape holding pencils, and it was going through the machine, and we were sitting right around the room with it, just having to hold the pencils, and it was sort of going through the machine on this loop. So every time I perform these songs live now, I am literally trying to get them right.
Now, I believe that your interest in tribal cultures inspired you to carve something into your back. Is that the case?
Yeah. I was reading about African cultures and listening to the music as well also. And there's all these things, you know, slitting the skin and putting stones under to get a sort of pattern. And I wanted to sort of go through a kind of a rite of pain. So I just asked Jordan, my manager at the time, to carve a 4-letter word out in my back to see if I could sort of take the sort of pain. And she did. And I said, "Oh, that's all right." And then I sort of fainted. I'd lost so much blood with this went. So it was just one of those things that I do not recommend, but I was taking it to the nth degree. Maybe it was a slight Danny Day-Lewis approach to music that he has for acting, to try and go through the experience of it.
Obviously, you know, you've had a kind of pretty big role in Jubilee.
Yeah.
How did you come to meet Derek Jarman?
It was basically through that tattoo that was cut, that thing that was cut out of my back. I had a jumper and I cut it so because it was painful, so I sort of pinned it open to let the air get with it. And he had seen me walking down King's Road, and he went into Seditionaries, as it was then, to see Jordan, who'd already been cast in the film. So I've seen this guy, we've definitely got to have him in the film. And then described me. He says, "Yeah, I manage his band." With Jubilee, my role in it was, I mean, really very incidental. I had no idea what was going on. It was just like, you know, you're this character and say that or whatever. And I was surrounded by these kind of very glamorous people, the little Nells of this world. And Derek himself was a sort of true artist, a very, very sort of creative guy. And I just sort of stumbled through this film. But my band got to play, you know, a couple of songs in it.
Yeah.
So that was, from my point of view, a bit of a break.
Plastic surgery, it's all plastic. Right, plastic surgery, it's plastic and you better take me away, yeah.
In doing my research for this interview, I came across one story which I didn't know about, and it blew my mind actually. Can you tell me how you came to meet Berry Gordy and ended up playing the Motown 25th anniversary party?
Yeah, my acting agent, there's a guy called Michael Black. He was very good friends with Suzanne de Passe, who is the managing director of Motown. I got a call through her from Berry Gordy. Would I like to meet Berry? So I went to meet Berry Gordy, and he'd seen all my videos. Stayed with Berry for a while. Then I got a call from Michael Jackson, which was, it happened before. He called me up early one morning, and I thought it was my drummer messing about, so I told him to take a run and jump, and it actually was Michael Jackson. And then Berry Gordy was putting on Motown 25, the theme of which was yesterday, today and forever. And forever was supposed to be people from outside Motown covering the catalogue. So Baby Where Did Our Love Go? I chose, because I remember seeing it as a kid. And then when I did the performance, I was the next one out after Jackson debuted Billie Jean. And now from London, England, so I had to do that. And I'd had a cartilage operation about 2 weeks before this performance, and halfway through the show, the knee went, it just gone. So I sort of sat down on the stage like that, and then the audience went berserk. I was like, "Yeah, great." And I thought, yeah, great. And I'm doing that, and Diana Ross has danced on this side, you know, and I stood up and and she danced around me, so that to deal with.
So, having to follow Michael Jackson debuting Billie Jean, no big deal then, right?
No, it was, you know, just...
Have I got it right
Yeah.
that he actually did the moonwalk for the first time that day
in
as well?
history, yeah. I suppose I've been lucky enough to be 10 foot away from two of the most historical performances. The Pistols' first gig in November '75, And Michael Jackson, literally, it was from here to, it was like 20 foot away, and I'm on next, and it's like, and he's done it, and I just go, you are joking.
Now, it's been a long time since we were listening to Wonderful. I was just wondering why you felt it was time now to release your new album.
I think really, I mean, a lot of that 17 years out, I was taken up, you know, did some acting, wrote a book, spent 5 years with my daughter, bringing her up. So really, it's only kind of about 3.5 years ago I had the kind of desire to write again and get back into it.
Aidan is the blue-black hussar in Marrying the Gunner's Daughter. I was wondering, is it a concept album?
It wasn't necessarily a concept album, but it's loosely autobiographical.
Would I be wrong in presuming that Vivian's Tears and Who's a Goofy Bunny are about Malcolm and Vivian?
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to sort of clear up the situations regarding Malcolm and me.
Yeah.
During my time working with Malcolm, prior to the Bow Wow Wow, you know, split up, he was the only person that had sat down with me, listened to all of Dirk Wears White Socks, tried to talk to me about, you know, the construction of songs. He just basically said, well, do you want to make this kind of independent record, or do you make a pop single? And I said, well, you know, I'd like to make a pop single. He just said, you're going the wrong way about it. No one had ever attempted to give me any kind of education before, and he did. And then he said, well, look, you know, you've got two things going for your muscles and you look all right, so put your face on the cover in colour.
Yeah.
Because all this stuff's black and white. So I felt that I owed Malcolm credit for that, and to do it in a very personal way, and hopefully a very loving way, because I was with Joe, his son Joe, and Ben when he died, when he passed away, which was devastating. It is a kind of tender look back at some of the good things in life, you know.
I'd just like to say it's really gratifying to see you looking so good, you know what I mean? And would I be right in thinking that there's a couple of songs dealing with your kind of bout with ill health on the album? Just basically wanted to know how you're feeling now.
Coming back into music, I knew that the questions would be asked. So you make a decision, you want to talk about it, you don't. And I found talking about my experiences of it and my knowledge of it, in my case, has been quite beneficial to some of the people interested in the work or interested in me. I feel that it's a subject that people feel guilty about and they shouldn't. And there's a terrible taboo about it that I think has to be addressed. So.
I was wondering, it almost like I see you as in a vanguard in kind of fashion senses for like what pop stars can do if they put their mind to it in the way that they look. What does it make you feel like when you look at the kind of state of indie bands and rock bands and even punk bands today?
It's really, I think all the styles, all the major styles, whether it's, you know, the rockers, the mods, the punk rockers, it's a kind of feeling. There has to be something coming from the street. There has to be something coming from an incident, from a social, economic point of view that causes kids to wear that kind of stuff. I think Roger Daltrey very succinctly said the reason kids wear hoodies is because there's so many CCTVs around. So that, unfortunately, because of what's going on, that culture, that fashion is coming out of that kind of fear. So it's a bit more restricted for kids now, I think. Until something comes along, and it will come along, it definitely will come along, where they more or less take over, that it will come and you'll start to see it. There'll be, you know, like certain kids wearing certain things, or there'll be a sort of flavour or a mood coming out, and I think it will happen. There's no reason why it shouldn't happen. So I'm quite optimistic. Personally, I think it's a bit lazy at the moment, but then I would, because I try to put a lot of effort into doing it, but that's just the school I come from, you know.
Can I just get you signed
Yeah,
something
you
for
can,
me?
certainly, yeah.
You must have signed a lot of these in your time.
I've done a few, yeah. Amazing amount of vinyl I signed in America. You wouldn't believe it. It's just that they still love vinyl. It's incredible.
Quite right too.
Quite right, yeah.
Aidan, it's been an absolute
Thank you very
pleasure
much.
meeting you.
Love everything.